Okay, welcome to part 12, and I believe this is going to be the final on the Zenith 6D-525 radio. This is the mount that Doug sent me, and this is the original one. It's a little shorter than what I wanted, but it'll work, because that's the dimensions I wanted it, but that's okay. The width is fine, about 3/4 of an inch, but the length is a little shy, but that's not a problem at all, because I want to put a piece of metal from here to here, but I want to mount it on this with a screw going through the center, I guess. I already got a hole for the bungee, keeps saying bungee cord, for the cable ties, but I want to make a bracket for that, and then have it sticking out, and then put these tabs through that bracket. So in a sense, it'll go like this, and I think I'm on macro. It'll go like that. Alright, I got it in. What a hell of a job. Did it a little differently. I cut some strips of metal. I had to try it a couple times here. A little wider than the cable tie, so it would go through the slots that are in the plastic thing. And slid it through. I don't even know if this is in focus. Really don't know. Can't see it good in the viewfinder, even with a magnifier. So the slots in the transformer, I managed to cut a sliver of metal, as you can see right there, so it goes in place of the wire tie, because when I tried to pull the wire tie through, this knob was sticking out here, the end of the wire ties, this part here, and it would be right up against the tube right here. So I figured I'll just make it out of metal, and it's not easy. It's very hard for me to see. It's like threading a needle, but we got it in there, and it's fairly solid. The only other way I could have done it is to hot glue it. My idea of putting a piece of metal across the top and screwing it down, I was going to do that out of a piece of this. It's galvanized, and just make little ears on the end to go in and have it on the top like that, like I was originally going to do. But it's not necessary. This will do fine. I had no choice. I tried working without the wires. I had to cut the wires. I had no choice. I tried to avoid it. I'm not going under that chassis. That's all rubber wire, and I'll definitely screw it up. So I'll have to put them together, strip them the best I can. I really should have left them a little longer here. It's going to be very hard for me to strip those. Strip them, make sure I get heat shrink on them, twist them together, solder them, and have to call it good. The wires are taking a beating here. It's cloth covered wire, but I think we can do it all right. And on here, now that I got this off, I'll try to solder the voice coil. Try to solder these wires from the secondary onto here. If I can, I'll use these, but I'll do that off camera. I need to get right in there with my head in order to be able to do any of that. And then this should fit right in there, I hope. Yeah, it'll clear just fine. So everything's fine with this. So let me get all this together. Let me get all this soldered, these wires done on, get the speaker in, and I'll get back to you. I don't know if you can see that or not, and I even know if it's in focus. You probably wonder what that resistor is. It's been suggested by Doug, and I knew this too, The impedance of the other speaker, DC resistance of the original speaker, was 3.5 ohms. So it's about a 4 ohm speaker, and this is an 8 ohm. Not a very pretty job. I had no choice. I had to put some scrap wire in there and splice it because the wire is just too short. I didn't want to cut it, but that was the only way I could mount this. So I had to add extensions on here and heat shrink. And this wire is not easy to solder because it was like corroded a little bit. You know, oxidized, I should say, not corroded. But didn't take solder too well. But I twisted them together good and did solder the best I could and heat shrink. I tried to avoid doing this. I'll tell you what, if I had known there was going to be this much trouble with it, I would have took the cone out of this and tried to recone the original speaker. With the original speaker in the radio, I would not have taken it out. Because to me, this is a butcher job. That's simple as that. It's a butcher job. It looks like hell. Now, with wires like this, it's crappy. It's not the way I like to work. And of course I have to do everything with a magnifying glass. And I can't see where the solder is going, or whether I got the wire in line and everything else, you know. So that's just the way it is, you know. That's just the way it is. So anyways, I guess we're ready to put it back together. Got to put the antenna on it. You're not going to get anything without the antenna coil in the back. But she's working. I tucked the wires in the best I could. The transformer mount looks very good. I want to thank Doug for making that for me. That worked out really good. I was going to color this with black Sharpie, but I'm not going to worry about it. You're not going to see it in the cabinet. I got more issue with the speaker being a little higher and not lining up with the cabinet. But what we're going to do now, I'm going to put it in the cabinet and be right back. I'm going to put the antenna on it and all that happy stuff. By the way, this is all set to work. Except for Band E, I'm not going to worry about it. Band E is 35 to 200, no, 35 to 120 megacycles. I thought it was 220. That's how my mind is. All right, I'm not going to worry about that because I can use the ICO 324 if I need to go higher. This works very well. The worst thing on this whole thing that I had of all the work I did is getting this back in the cabinet. What a hell of a job. I don't know how you made out, Larry, with yours, but it's a SOB getting this back in the cabinet. There's 2 screws on the bottom, okay? 2 screws here, okay? So I put those in because this thing kept sliding inward. And then I couldn't get the top in. I pried with a screwdriver and tried to get it in. I was fighting with it, and I loosened the bottom, but I did not take the screws out again. I finally got it in. What a SOB getting this in the case. That is the hardest part of doing this thing. Then I managed to get the screws in the back, and also off camera, I put a 1 amp fuse in there. It only draws 100 mils, but I figure a 1 amp fast blow fuse, in case there's a short in there, that will definitely blow and maybe save the transformer. But originally it did not come with a fuse. Okay, so anyways, the video is about this here. So we're going to go put this back in the cabinet now. And I'll join you when we get it all done. Okay, I'm having a very bad time with this radio. The worst I've had in any of the previous versions of parts. I had to extend the antenna wires here and here. I could not get them to reach and go on. It able to unsolder them. Actually, I had to cut them off. The antenna coil, but I tried getting it in, and it just would not reach. So I had to extend them, that's all. I have to do this on a lot of my radios because things just don't fit right. Speaking of fitting, I can't get the bottom bolts in. If I put the bottom bolts in, this knob with the set screws, see this set screw sticking out over here? I gotta get you on macro. Right here. It hits the cabinet opening, the hole in the wood. And I don't know why, because it shouldn't have anything to do with the speaker. I cannot get those screws to line up with these. I cannot. So I'm leaving the bottom screws out. I'm leaving them out. I spent a half an hour on this thing trying to get this in the case. And when I did get the screws in the bottom, which didn't seem to feel like they were lining up with this, but you can't see in the hole. You cannot see at all, even with a magnifier and a light. So you have to go by feel. It didn't work. So I couldn't turn this control at all. So I'm leaving it out. I filed the set screw down. The set screw is always stuck up a little bit. There's two of them. One goes down all the way because the shaft that's on here is a half moon. The other one don't, and it's pretty hard steel, so I filed it a little bit. And what it's doing is it's binding in the cabinet opening. But it's not centered right. When I've tried to drive those screws in, it knocks the chassis out of line. So I'm going to try one more time. If it don't go in, I'm not going to aggravate myself on this. You know, it's just not worth it. So we'll get it all together, and if I have to, when I get this in the cabinet, and I've done this before on other radios, take a screw and just put it on an angle in the back here and drive it into the bottom of the cabinet just to keep the chassis from sliding out. It's not what I want to do. The cabinet is in nice shape and I really don't want to do that. But sometimes you have to do things that you don't want to do. Lined up perfectly, not binding it all into the cabinet. Because there's still a little bit of set screw sticking up. It wasn't doing this before. Of course, then again, I didn't put it back in the cabinet with the new control. But right now it's fine. But can't get the screw in. It just will not go in. So I'm not going to disturb the chassis. Okay, I'm reaching underneath there. I'm not moving this chassis at all. I can see the screw coming up on the outside of the chassis. If I slide that over to the right, I'm not going to get that in. So we're leaving it alone. We're going to put a screw right here. We'll take a wood screw and drive it in here. I don't like doing it, as I said, but I got to have something in there or that chassis will fall right out. Before I start doing any drastic things, like driving a screw on an angle like I was going to do right here, to keep the chassis in, I think I'm going to shim it up with some wood first. I'll have to cut these pieces and wedge them in there and get them in real tight so I know the chassis won't come out unless the radio's turned upside down. So that's my only option. The other option is, you see where these are here? These things? Well, I can measure where that chassis is now, measure, and then allow about a 1/4 inch towards the front. Drill holes up there and put the screws in here. It's originally there was no holes underneath, but that is my other option that I can do. But I really don't want to drill any more holes in the cabinet because, you know, this is all original and hasn't been modified. So I think the safest thing for me to do at this time is to put some wood in here. So I'm going to mark off the lengths I need And I'm going to probably have to double these up and wedge them in real tight. And that might solve my problem, and I can continue putting this thing together. Okay, old goat's hillbilly way of doing it, but I got it wedged in there really good. I got 2 pieces of, well, this Chinese 1/4-inch Luan junk. This wood is pretty crappy. That's what I used in the tub surround. And you get the blade halfway through when you saw it, and it breaks right off. It's like, it's got strings in the middle of it. I don't know. They probably made it out of cloth too. Anyways, I took a wide piece like this, and I wrapped some masking tape around it, and built it up on this side, and wedged it in real tight. So it's nice and centered now. Of course, this shaft sticks out a little bit, but I never bothered bringing it in. At least I can turn it now. It's not dragging on the cabinet front. Because if you try to get these bottom bolts in, the screw comes out to the outside here. And if you force the cabinet over so it'll go in there, which I couldn't even get to do that, the knobs and everything's all out of line in the front. So this isn't going to come out, and I feel better about doing it this way than to take a screw and putting it on an angle like I was going to do here and drive it down on a 45 into the cabinet bottom to keep the back of the cabinet chassis from coming out. So we don't have to do that. That's good. So maybe somebody with a lot more patience than I have, if they ever get this radio in the future, will be able to deal with it, but I can't. I don't think it's a speaker, as you can try to get you in there with a little light. I don't think so. You can see the speaker frame comes to the top of the opening cardboard or whatever they put in there. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. So we're going to get this antenna hooked up. And that's it. The reason that wood is sticking up in the air like that, the one on the left, is because of these things here. See these? See where the screw goes up in? Well, they got one on each side over here, and it's hitting that. So it's not going to go anywhere unless you turn the radio upside down, maybe. I mean, I could glue them in, but I don't want to do that. I want to be able to, this thing to be removed. Okay. So, let's get the antenna in this and try to end this series once and for all. Oh, finally. I'll tell you, part 12 turned out to be a SOB of a job, especially trying to get those screws in the bottom. I don't dare turn this upside down, but I'm going to try to turn it a little bit. The screws go in, sorry for the lighting, see that hole right there and that hole over there? They do not line up. They do not line up, as you saw earlier in the video. But I'm able to turn the control perfectly now because these shafts are centered in the hole. If I try to go up in there with the screws, the chassis is going to get pulled either to the left or the right. I think to the left in this case. And it's impossible. It just drags on the set screw. And even though I filed it down, it's still up there a little bit. And I can't turn the control. I can only turn it like a little bit. And now I can turn it all the way up and all the way over. So now, put this on, put this on, put this up to 118 volts. Take out my dehumidifier because it's going to be all noise. We're not getting that much water in here anyways. Turn the radio on. Once we got the cord under the radio. Oh well. Okay.
What happens in the next week? And that next week is almost up. At the White House. Meantime, Senate Republicans just blocking the Democrats' latest
It's all the way up.
bill from
Not all that loud.
President Kamala Harris calling
players for 10 days.
Seems to be a little slippage in the dial code, which was not there before. I mean, it seems to be a delay when I turn this. And it seems to be okay when it comes to a stop, though. Got the volume all the way up.
To Washington, where House Democrats now say paid family and medical leave will be added.
Fox 7 morning into the river and found humans remains. Middlesex VA Marion Ryan
his raiders who released him last night. America is listening.
That's as loud as she gets. She no.
Did you know that
she's no yellow? Yeller, I should say.
Solution. Check it out.
Still working from home? Yes, as Stacy Lynn says, one advantage to traveling is working while doing it.
A new study from...
But you got to remember, I paralleled the speaker with a resistor, like Doug had suggested, and I knew that too, in order to get the impedance right. When you put an 8-ohm speaker, hook it to an output transformer that's designed for 4-ohm, you need to bring it down to 4 ohms so that the output transformer and the audio output tube sees the proper impedance. And of course that robs power from it too. So that's understandable, I guess.
After strong growth over the first half of this year.
Now,
Powell said the Fed does
you
not
get a little distortion, but before I put that resistor in, there was a lot more distortion.
62. A former camera assistant says he resigned just a day before.
Thanks, Jeff. Staten Island Express.
It's better at the low end of the dial, believe it or not.
Verrazano Bridge to the west.
Come back and play at any point. It was such a weird thing that the GM would ask the player, like, hey, what's
Let's see. My local station comes in. Should be around 1300.
Shipping. Financing from Dell Preferred Account. Call 800 by Dell for Black Friday deals.
I think it is. Let's see.
From city streets. From Road Warrior.
Yeah.
Carpooler.
Okay.
Thing. Always.
All right.
Like the reliability, durability, and power.
I'm happy with it. I'm happy with it, folks. I'm not happy that I can't get the bottom screws in. But I showed you what happens. And yes, it's true that this coupler here is big around and it just barely fits into the hole. I mean, I could file a hole bigger in the cabinet. And then it could be off center a little bit, but the tuning dial was dead center. Right now it's dead center in the cabinet. If I force this chassis over with the screws where they're supposed to be, this shaft will be right up against the side of the wood, and then you're going to have resistance, and then I'd have to take and file this whole oblong, and I ain't doing that. So I think my hillbilly method of putting the shims in the chassis, between the chassis and the sides, certainly better than having to drill a hole and drive a screw on an angle to hold the chassis in place. I really didn't want to do that, and I'm glad I didn't have to. This concludes the part number 13. Now, part number 12. I should call this part 13 because this is a bad luck video. I mean, everything seemed to have gone wrong. I had to extend the wires in the audio output transformer primary. I had to extend, because I could not make them meet. I had to extend the wires to the antenna because I was not able to make them solder. Off camera, it took me 10 tries to get the solder to go on because it kept popping off. But you will never hear that audio. I don't know, folks. Getting too damn old for this hobby. But no use complaining. I like doing it, but when things like this happen, it just aggravates the hell out of me. That's it. As far as changing the speaker out in the future, I don't know if I want to take this apart again. That's it, folks. I'm going to bring it in the house and it'll just be a shelf queen. I may never use it. Because I have radios that do play a little better than this. And with the computer noise and the wall warts and all that stuff, it's just too noisy in the house. I am going to, I got to find the other screw. It's on the damn floor where everything ends up. My magnifiers are always falling on the floor. So I got to locate the other one. I'm going to put a little baggie on the back of this thing with a note in there saying that these screws go to the bottom. And that's it. And these pilot lights came from another radio. Okay. And the extra screw over here was the speaker screw, which now has a Phillips self-tapping in its place. That's it. This concludes part 12 of the Zenith 6D-525. I'm glad this project is done.